Hey folks, it's Ray, Rainmaker.com here, and today we've got the new Elite Direto XR and your full in-depth review of this trainer. Been using it for a while now on lots of pretty substantial rides, actually. Zwift's Mont Ventoux, for example, and lots of painful rides for that matter too. Now, the Direto series in the past has always been kind of Elite's mid-range trainer lineup, so comparable to something like a Wahoo Kicker Core or the Tax Flux series. But this year, they're kicking this thing to the top dog status. So the Direto XR is Elite's top trainer. So it pushes the Drivo series out to the retirement home or something. It's gone now, and they've kicked up the specs with it. So this thing now sports 24% gradient resistance simulation. Previously in the past, it was 18%. They've also included the cassette with it right there. Now, the cassette's a little cleaner when you get it in the box. We'll talk about that in a second. But I've got some use on mine, and you know, it's just real road grease and all that kind of stuff. And then they also increased the flywheel from 4.2 kilograms to 4.5 kilograms. That there being the flywheel, the big spinny thing, so that increases the road feel resistance. Beyond that though, they've also changed a bunch of the ERG Mode algorithms. And they've pretty much dramatically improved ERG Mode on this unit compared to past Direto units. Also, a couple final specification things that we didn't cover in the new side of it is axle compatibility on this side of the screen and cassette compatibility on that side of the screen. So again, it comes with an 11-speed cassette, but you can swap that out for other cassettes depending on what you want to put on there. And then beyond that, it supports up to 2,300 watts of resistance at 40 kilometers an hour, which is about 1,300 watts more than I can put out. But if you can put out 2,300 watts, congrats, I can't. And the accuracy claimed is plus or minus 1.5%. And we will dive through all these things over the course of this review or my written review, which you can see on the screen right now, linked down below in the description there. Okay, but first things first is the Direto XR unboxing. I did this back a while ago now, so I'm gonna go back, cut to that tape there. On this exact same table, you can see it right there. It's a pretty tall box, unusually tall for a trainer, in fact. And so once you open up the top up, you need to stop for a second and flip it on its side, because that's how you gently pull it out. And it's one of those things that once you see this happen in real, like you're like, what? Why has no other trainer company ever just simply slid the trainer out the side of the box? You're always either dumping the whole thing upside down and then it flops down, it's a complete mess, or you're trying to pull it up and it gets caught in something else, and like, props. Now keep in mind, in the past, Elite has had some pretty sketchy box situations. So this is like gone from last to best, from worst to first, or something like that. Anyways, so once you pull it out, you'll see it. Your cassette is there in shiny plastic, untouched silver, as clean as you could possibly get, ready to pull that plastic off and dirty it all up. You'll also notice that the legs simply rotate out. So now we'll kind of cut back over here, and you'll see the way the legs work. If I just tilt this up on the side there, there's a little notch down below like this, and that just simply allows you to close them, lock them in place if you want to, open them up, and that is that. There we go. Also, since we got this thing here, we'll flip it around to this side, and you can see the status lights are right there. So status lights showing you ANT+ and Bluetooth Smart status. The power cable goes from here on this little wiggle thing right there, and then it slides under and it's plugged down there. A little bit longer power cable in the past, which is nice. It looks about 2-ish or so meters, 2.5 meters, I think it is. But pretty standard issue power cable. No additional power brick, by the way, which is kind of nice. It just goes straight from this into the wall and you're good to go. And in addition, there's the Elite Upgrado app, like upgrade, but like if you were to say like SpaghettiOs at the end of it, upgrade dough. Anyways, that's where you update all the firmware on Elite products. Came out last November, I think, and it works with this one as well. I upgraded the firmware on this, no problems at all. So with that, let's dive into a little bit of the app side and road feel and noise and all that kind of stuff. So first you need to pair this up. It supports ANT+ and Bluetooth Smart, just like every other trainer out there. ANT+ FEC, Bluetooth Smart FTMS for control, ANT+ and Bluetooth Smart power broadcasting, and ANT+ and Bluetooth Smart cadence and speed broadcasting. So all that's there on all the channels, supports every standard it is. Elite is more or less been the leader in supporting all of that stuff like correctly from the beginning. So as you can see here on Zwift, this is on Apple TV, paired up via Bluetooth Smart. I got my power, I got my control, and I got cadence all coming through that single channel, but I still have one more channel left for heart rate. I've also used it on ANT+ with Zwift, as well as ANT+ with TrainerRoad, and Bluetooth Smart with both Zwift and TrainerRoad on an iPad too. So like I've tried all the things of this, and been really happy with all of them. Now, before we start talking noise and road feel, just a quick note that if you are finding this review useful, simply whack that like button right now on the bottom there. It really helps out this video and the channel quite a bit. So with that, let's jump over to the bike and we'll talk about road feel and noise and all that kind of fun stuff. Now, first you'd notice in the box, there was that front wheel block. I put that under my wheel there. I really do like a front wheel block under my trainers, all the trainers that I use. I just like my wheel straight and not wiggling around. But if you want the wiggle around thing, there's Elite Steerzo series you can put underneath there. This is the basic one. And the Steerzo is not bad because it still centers it afterwards. That's really my issue is I don't want my front wheel being like cockeyed left or right, so Steerzo automatically centers it. You can see my past review on that up in the corner there as well. Okay, so here we are on the bike. I do a couple quick things. I'm gonna run through sort of the ride feel. Overall, it's pretty good. It's not like, you know, $1,200 trainer good, but it's in the range of what you expect for this particular price point. So if I go and shift here and accelerate, it feels nice. The acceleration feels natural there. Going to a bit of a sprint. Nothing too crazy, but as I slow down there, I kind of feel it catch back up with me again. So all that feels pretty natural. Okay, so what about the audio side of things? Well, it's good, but it's not great. It's somewhat quiet, but it's certainly not like Kick or Core quiet, which is a little bit cheaper, but without a cassette. And right now you're listening to it on my lav mic, which means that it's probably making it sound a lot more quiet than it actually is. In reality, in order to really hear what it sounds like, I'm gonna switch over to the on-camera mic. Because that'll pick up the entire noise of the room and you can listen to the trainer. Keep in mind, before I do that, the trainer will sound probably a heck of a lot louder. I'm basically in a giant concrete box right here, so just keep that in mind. Okay, now that the lav mics are off, you can hear the trainer, and hear in particular my voice in the room, just how echoey it is, and just how loud something like clicking in and out of it is real quick. That's just kind of for context right there. Now here I am cruising along about 18 miles an hour, 19 miles an hour. Now with sound, keep in mind it's not about the power, but about your speed. The faster you go on a smart trainer, the louder it will be. Simple as that. So I can be doing 1,000 watts in ERG mode, for example, and still be fairly quiet, but I could also be doing 120 watts and be very, very loud. So it just depends on the gearing I have. So to listen to a bit of a sprint here, I'll start off. Let you listen to it from kind of start to finish. You listen to my shifting here as again kind of context for how loud it might actually be. And now I'll shift down to some of the quieter combinations. And this is what it might sound like in ERG mode. Even if I was putting out 800 watts, it would sound exactly the same right now. Okay, so with the noise and the kind of ride feel out of the way, what about ERG mode? What about like TrainerRoad or even Zwift instructional workout mode? And I've got to say, that's probably the biggest highlight of this trainer. Like the resistance increase is fine and the cassette is nice and all that kind of stuff, but the ERG mode's where it's at. This is where they finally made some big improvements there. In the past with Elite, the Direto, and to some degree the Sweeto as well, the ERG mode would oscillate a lot, so it wouldn't like hold the wattage as steady as I wanted to, especially at the beginning of the interval. But that hasn't been the case here. I'll give them props. They spent a lot of time on fine-tuning the algorithm to the new flywheel, and they seem to have nailed it. Like my ERG mode sessions were really, really good. Now, like all trainers that recommend that you put your front chainring in the smaller of the two chainrings on the front derailleur there, and then in the rear here being roughly like halfway up the cassette or higher, so this direction towards the wheel, will give you more stability. In my case, I found there was a noticeable difference between halfway up the cassette and 2/3, even 3/4 way up the cassette. So just keep that in mind. Play around with it from your stability standpoint, responsiveness standpoint. I would say my sweet spot was like 2 to 3 rings from the top sort of thing was like where it was like boom, nailed. So speaking of accuracy, let's go to the computer and go through some of the actual power and cadence accuracy. Okay, so looking at the accuracy, I'm gonna look at 2 workouts in this particular video, but I've got all these workouts in the in-depth review link down below here and many more as well. So looking at the TrainerRoad 30x30 is one of the toughest tests to do out there. You'll see that the wattages are almost identical between this and the Quark. So if we look at some of the differences on these, you're talking like 2 to 4 watts in a lot of cases. Even in the worst case scenario, you're talking like 3 to 7 watts, give or take, 6 watts, 5 watts. I mean, it's very, very close across the board. In particular, when you go up and down across this, no issues at all. Meanwhile, switching over to Zwift, this is a crit race I did, so a lot of ups and downs and wattage. As you can see here, it's not very consistent because it's, you know, constant surges. But just looking across the entire thing, you see the lines blend together between the PowerTap P2 pedals, the Quark D0 power meter, and the Elite Direto XR. If we zoom into some sections like this right here, just picking some sections to randomly zoom in, you'll see they're very, very close. In some cases, there's some slight wobbles, but that's somewhat to be expected when you're talking this constant shifts in power. If we just pick like a random point like right here at the very top, all these are within 1 watt, which is pretty impressive across the board. And again, they're very, very similar for most of this. You are going to see drivetrain losses and things like that here and there, but in terms of overall accuracy, we're only talking a few watts difference in most cases across this entire range, so pretty darn good. Okay, so there you go, a complete look at the Direto XR trainer. You know, really replacing a lot of the Elite lineup. You've got at the high end, the Drivo's been kicked to the curb. You now have the Direto XR at $949. And then below that, you have the Elite Suito, which also includes a cassette, just less power, but also a little more portable, to be honest, too. But not as accurate from my experience, and not quite as stable on some of the ERG stuff as this one is here. And at the bottom, you've got the Elite 2.0, or the Toaster, as I like to say, and that trainer isn't yet shipping. It was supposed to ship a year ago and hasn't happened. They're saying soon, like maybe this fall, maybe late this summer. I don't know, but for now, I've still got my Toaster ready when it does start shipping. Okay, so now if you did find this video interesting, you'll probably want to hit that subscribe button, because while 2020 has been a wonky year for a lot of reasons, one thing that is going to remain a bit stable compared to past years is that sort of cycle of new indoor training stuff as we reach towards Eurobike, which, you know, historically has been at the end of August, certainly not happening this time frame this year, but I think we're still going to see that new indoor training products peak around then. So you won't want to miss any of that by just whacking that subscribe button, because, you know, that's the thing to do. With that, thanks for watching. Have a good one.